My fiancée invited the sister who ruined my life to our wedding, so I canceled it on the spot.
My name's Curtis. I'm 31, and 6 months ago, I proposed to my girlfriend Mel. We'd been together for 5 solid years, and I really thought we were about to start the best chapter of our lives. The wedding was supposed to happen next month. But then, she pulled something I never saw coming. And just like that, everything imploded in seconds. See, for you to really get why I nuked the whole thing, I need to rewind a bit. There's someone in my life, well, was in my life, who pretty much lit the match that shattered any sense of trust I had in people. That person is my half-sister Jolene. She's 28 now, and I haven't spoken a single word to her in over 9 years. And believe me, it wasn't for nothing.
Growing up, Jolene and I, oil and water. Our parents were dead set on making us act like the picture-perfect siblings, but all we ever did was go at each other's throats. She was insanely competitive, like to the point where she couldn't let me breathe without trying to one-up me. And yeah, I still remember the exact moment everything between us went straight to hell. That one day defined everything that came after. I was 10, Jolene was 7. I just crushed a spelling bee at school, and our parents, trying to be all supportive and wholesome, took us out for ice cream to celebrate. Now, any normal kid might have clapped or at least said, "Good job." Not Jolene. This girl had a meltdown right there in the middle of the ice cream shop. Full-on screaming, red-faced rage. "It's not fair," she shrieked. "I can spell better than Curtis." She actually demanded our parents quiz her on the spot like it was some impromptu spelling duel or something. People were staring. I wanted to melt into the floor. And that wasn't just some one-off tantrum. That was the blueprint for the rest of our childhood.
Anytime I achieved something, Jolene had to turn it into a battlefield. If I got an A on a math test, she'd turn into some study-obsessed maniac until she got an A2, just to prove she wasn't less. When I was 12, I won a local art contest, my first real win, and our parents were proud enough to take me out to dinner. We hadn't even ordered appetizers yet before Jolene threw another public tantrum. She screamed about how she could draw better than me and forced everyone to look at her doodles on a damn napkin. She hijacked the whole night. That's just how she was. If I joined the basketball team, boom, suddenly she was dribbling around the backyard like she was trying out for the WNBA. It was like she couldn't stand the idea of me being good at anything unless she could beat it. In high school, anytime I looked at a girl with interest, Jolene would swoop in like some kind of sabotage fairy. Either she'd become the girl's new bestie overnight or start casually flirting with her, just enough to mess with my head. It was exhausting. My own home, the place that should have been my safe zone, felt more like a never-ending rivalry arena. Our parents didn't sit on their hands. They tried everything to fix the dysfunction. When I was 16 and Jolene was 13, they even dragged us into family therapy. But she just sat there like a brick wall, arms crossed, stone-faced, barely muttering a syllable, while the poor therapist scrambled to make something happen. Eventually, the therapist threw in the towel and told our parents point blank, "If Jolene won't cooperate, there's nothing more I can do." Things finally hit the boiling point in our early 20s. I had just graduated college and landed a dream job at a top-tier marketing firm. I'm talking real deal stuff, big pay, insane benefits, and projects that could actually influence the industry. It felt like everything I'd grinded for had finally come through.
Meanwhile, Jolene, still in college, still floundering. She'd switched majors 4 times, barely hanging on with late assignments and looming academic prodation. She had no idea what she wanted, and it showed. So there we were, sitting around the table at a family dinner. I shared the big news about my job, expecting, at least a half-hearted congrats. What I got instead? A full-on explosion. Her face twisted into something ugly, and she started shouting, loud enough to kill the whole vibe. "You're such a show-off," she snapped. "Why do you always have to be the golden child?" Then she hit me with this. "Why can't you just fail for once so someone else can finally breathe?" I should have known right then that she'd never see me as a brother, only as a threat. What she said stung, sure, but it was the look in Jolene's eyes that really rattled me. It wasn't just anger. It was something darker. A toxic mix of envy, resentment, and pure spite. My parents, bless them, tried to smooth things over. They told her she had time, that my achievements didn't take anything away from her own potential. But Jolene, she wasn't hearing a word. She shot daggers at me, then stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell clean off the wall. That night, I caught her whispering into the phone in her room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice carried. She was ranting to one of her friends, saying stuff like, "He's not going to keep rubbing this in my face. I'll make damn sure he gets knocked down a peg or two." I rolled my eyes. Classic Jolene. I figured up to another one of her melodramatic blow-ups. We'd had plenty over the years. I figured she'd cool off and move on. But man, I was so wrong. Just a few days before I was supposed to start my new job, I got this gut punch of an email from HR. Cold, corporate, straight to the point. "We've launched a sudden review of your background due to some concerning materials brought to our attention."
Turns out, someone had sent them a bunch of fake crap. Doctored emails, screenshots from bogus social media accounts, all supposedly written by me. These messages were full of hateful, bigoted garbage, stuff that could get anyone blacklisted in a heartbeat. Whoever did it went all in. It wasn't just some prank, it was a full-blown character assassination. I was blindsided, crushed. It felt like someone had ripped my future right out from under me. When HR called to officially revoke my job offer, it felt like the floor just vanished beneath me. The position I had busted my ass for, the one I had dreamed about for years, was gone. Just like that. And honestly, it didn't take a genius to figure out who was behind it. Jolene was the only one who had enough ammo on me, enough personal details to fabricate something that specific and damaging. So I confronted her. At first, she played dumb. Gave me this smug little shrug like she couldn't care less. But the more I pushed, the more that mask of hers started to slip. Then she finally snapped. "Maybe you deserve to know what it feels like for once," she hissed, voice shaking with rage. "You've always been the favorite, the one everyone worships. It's about time you got knocked down." I just stood there, stunned. My own sister had nuked my future, not by accident, not in a fit of rage, but on purpose, out of pure, calculated jealousy. And the worst part, she wasn't even sorry. Eventually, she cracked. She laid it all out. She made the fake accounts, forged the emails, carefully curated every piece of that slander campaign just to watch me fail. And she said it with this twisted sense of pride, like she'd finally won something. Like she'd scored a victory in some sick, imaginary game we were never playing. That was it for me. This wasn't sibling rivalry. This was war. I told her I never wanted to see her face again, ever. And I meant it.
I walked out of that house, out of that chapter of my life, and crashed at a buddy's place while I tried to figure out how the hell to put myself back together. In the years that followed, I cut Jolene out completely, cold. My parents still saw her now and then, but they knew better than to bring her name up around me. Rebuilding my career? It was brutal. Every step forward felt like dragging a 100-pound weight behind me. But I kept going, because I had no other choice. I had to start from the bottom. Took a crap salary at a job I was overqualified for just to stay afloat. But I kept grinding, and little by little, I clawed my way back up. Fast forward a few years, I've got a solid job now. Real friends who've had my back through it all. And until recently, I had Mel. Meeting Mel 5 years ago felt like life was finally giving me a break. She was kind, sharp, funny as hell. Everything I didn't realize I needed. On our 4th date, I laid it all out. Told her the full story about Jolene, no sugarcoating. She listened, nodded, and said something like, "Family's messy. I respect your decision." And I told her, very clearly, Jolene was out of my life. For good. No exceptions. Especially not at something as sacred as my wedding. At first, Mel was on board. She seemed to get it. But once the wedding planning really kicked in, the tone started to change. She kept bringing Jolene up. Just little comments at first. Maybe it's time to move on. She's still your sister. Don't you think weddings are about family? Every time I shut it down hard. Forgiveness wasn't on the menu because just the idea of seeing Jolene again made my gut twist. This was supposed to be the best day of my life. And the thought of her being there? It turned my stomach. She'd already ruined so much. There was no way in hell I was letting her ruin this, too.
Mel would drop the topic for a bit, but I could always feel it brewing under the surface. She wasn't okay with my stance, no matter how many times she said she understood. Then, last week, everything blew up. We were in the living room, dead tired after work, guest list spread out across the coffee table. I was already running on fumes, and the last thing I wanted was to revisit this conversation for the 100th time. But Mel wasn't letting it go this time. "Curtis, I really think you should reconsider inviting Jolene," she said gently, like she was trying to tiptoe through a minefield. "She is your sister. Don't you think it's time to forgive and move on?" I felt my jaw lock up. She'd said those exact words before. But this time, they hit different. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, all hopeful and pleading. Or maybe I was just worn down from weeks of the same back and forth. Whatever it was, it landed like a gut punch. "Mel," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "we've been over this. It's not happening. If she shows up, everything falls apart. You know what she did to me." And I meant every word. Letting Jolene in, even for one day, was like handing the arsonist a box of matches and asking her to light the candles at the reception. Mel let out this long, heavy sigh, her frustration practically humming in the air between us. "But it was years ago," she said, trying to keep her tone calm. "People change, Curtis. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she regrets it."
That word, regret, lit a fuse inside me. "Regrets it?" I snapped, the anger bubbling up like it never left. "She destroyed my childhood, torched my career, smeared my name like it was a damn hobby. Jolene knew exactly what she was doing. You don't just wake up one day and say, 'Oops, my bad,' after that." Mel looked at me, searching my face like she was hoping to find even the tiniest crack, a sliver of mercy I didn't have. "I'm not saying it was okay," she said softly. "I just think maybe she deserves a chance to make it right." I stared at her, disbelief punching through my exhaustion. "Why are you pushing this? Why does she deserve a spot at our wedding?" Mel's expression shifted, harder now. "Because family matters, Curtis. I can't imagine cutting someone off forever." That hit harder than I expected. "Family?" I echoed, bitter. "You think this is about some petty grudge? Jolene didn't steal my lunch money or snitch on me in high school. She sabotaged my entire damn life. I had to rebuild everything from ground zero because she couldn't handle me succeeding. Mel shook her head, her voice sharpening. You're being stubborn. You're punishing her for something she did when she was young. That was it. I snapped. A mistake? Do you even get what it was like to lose that job? To have my name dragged through the dirt because my own sister couldn't stand seeing me do well? That wasn't some teenage lapse in judgment, Mel. That was straight up cruelty. She folded her arms and looked away stiff. Maybe she's grown. Maybe she wants to apologize.
And maybe I don't give a damn, I shot back. She made her choices, I made mine. And I told you this was a hard boundary for me. If you can't respect that, then maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all. Mel's eyes went wide, the shock hitting her like a punch to the gut. I watched the hurt crawl across her face, slow and sharp, like a shadow swallowing light. You're seriously saying this? Over her? She asked, her voice tight. Yes, I said. Because it's not just about her, it's about loyalty. You're supposed to be on my side, Mel. You knew what this meant to me, and you still kept pushing. Silence settled between us like fog, thick, heavy, suffocating. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. We used to be that annoyingly in-love couple who made people roll their eyes. Now we were just strangers in the same room. Then she whispered, I thought you'd understand. I thought love meant forgiveness. I shook my head slowly, barely able to get the words out. Love also means respect, and I can't respect someone who doesn't respect my boundaries. She didn't respond, just sat there, tears threatening to spill, lips pressed tight. After what felt like forever, she stood up and walked out. No words, no drama, just the quiet sound of everything falling apart. I stayed on that couch, staring at the damn guest list, the names bleeding into each other through my blurred vision. I didn't even try to wipe the tears away. The next morning was cold. Mel barely looked at me. When she did speak, it was all stiff and polite, like we were coworkers or something. No warmth, no edge, just ice. And honestly, that silence, that distance, it hurt more than any fight ever could. It was like this invisible wall had dropped between us overnight, and neither of us had a clue how to break it down. I kept telling myself it'd pass, that we'd figure it out, that love like ours could weather anything.
But deep down, I felt it. That crack. That fracture you can't unsee. And once faith gets chipped like that, it's damn near impossible to glue the pieces back together. A week later, the whole damn thing blew sky high. I got home late, wiped out, mentally fried, and the second I walked through the door, I felt it. Mel was at the dining table, white as a sheet, hands trembling like she'd seen a ghost. The air was thick, heavy, wrong. What's going on? I asked, already bracing for something awful. She looked up at me, eyes full of guilt, voice shaking. Curtis, I need to tell you something. Instant dread twisted in my gut. What do you need to tell me? I said slowly, trying to keep my voice from cracking. I reached out to Jolene. Silence. For a second I thought I misheard. Thought maybe my brain short-circuited after the long day. But then it hit me, like a gut punch. You what? I barked, louder than I meant to.
I found her online a few months ago, she said, tearing up. We've been talking. I just wanted to understand what really happened. And I invited her to the wedding. It was like the floor disappeared. My ears started ringing. My lungs forgot how to breathe. You invited her? I asked, barely holding it together, my voice shredded with disbelief. I'm sorry, she cried. I thought it was the right thing. I thought maybe if she came, you two could finally— No, I snapped at her, cutting her off like a blade. You went behind my back. You did the one thing I told you never to do. You betrayed me. Curtis, please, she begged, tears streaming. I love you. I was just trying to help. Help? I let out this bitter, dead laugh that didn't sound like me. You think this is helping? You knew what she did to me. You knew, and you still brought her back into my life.
I took a step back as she reached for me, like her touch might finish the job my sister started. This isn't love, Mel, I said, each word ripping out of my throat. This is manipulation. Curtis, wait, she whispered, her voice cracking, barely holding on. There's more. I thought she changed. I really did, Mel said, her voice thin and broken. But when I talked to her, I realized I was wrong. She paused, like the next part physically hurt to say. She looked at me and said, "Oh, you're his new girl? How can you even be with such a loser?" My chest locked up, my fists clenched. Of course Jolene hadn't changed. Of course she'd still be that same venomous, bitter person, lashing out even when someone was extending a damn olive branch. Merle's tears were falling hard now. That's when I realized, you were right. About everything. I never should have reached out. I thought I was helping, but all I did was blow it up. I see it now. I see how much she hurt you, and I'm so sorry. Her apology hung there like fog, heavy, suffocating, but it didn't do a damn thing to ease the sting. You should have trusted me, I said, my voice quiet but unshakable. You should have listened when I told you what I needed.
I shook my head, the weight of it all too much to carry anymore. No, Mel, you broke my trust, and once that's gone, there's nothing left to fix. I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. The space between us felt colder than death, like the door to our whole life together had slammed shut behind me. I knew it was over, and it hurt more than I thought anything ever could. That night, I crashed in the guest room, lying flat on my back, just staring at the ceiling, replaying every damn word we'd said, over and over, trying to find the moment everything slipped through our fingers. My mind was a wreck, like a storm that wouldn't quit. Sleep never came. I could hear Mel moving around in the bedroom, the zippers, the drawers, the shuffle of her footsteps. She was packing. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. 5 years. Gone. And once again, it all circled back to Jolene. When Mel finally walked out, suitcase in hand, we locked eyes. Her face was streaked with tears, but there was something cold and certain in her look, like she'd already made peace with the wreckage. "Are you sure this is what you want, Curtis?" she asked, voice barely hanging on. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "No, Mel, this isn't what I want," I said, my voice cracking. "But it's what you left me with." She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head, the weight of it all too much to carry anymore. "No, Mel, you broke my trust, and once that's gone, there's nothing left to fix." I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. The space between us felt colder than death, like the door to our whole life together had slammed shut behind me. I knew it was over. And it hurt more than I thought anything ever could. That night, I crashed in the guest room, lying flat on my back, just staring at the ceiling, replaying every damn word we'd said, over and over, trying to find the moment everything slipped through our fingers. My mind was a wreck, like a storm that wouldn't quit. Sleep never came. I could hear Mel moving around in the bedroom, the zippers, the drawers, the shuffle of her footsteps. She was packing. I didn't have to ask. I already knew. 5 years. Gone. And once again, it all circled back to Jolene. When Mel finally walked out, suitcase in hand, we locked eyes. Her face was streaked with tears, but there was something cold and certain in her look, like she'd already made peace with the wreckage. "Are you sure this is what you want, Curtis?" she asked, voice barely hanging on. I swallowed hard. My throat felt like sandpaper. "No, Mel, this isn't what I want," I said, my voice cracking. "But it's what you left me with." She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. "I never meant to hurt you."
I know, I said, and I did. But that doesn't erase what you did. We stood there, suspended in a moment soaked with everything we didn't say. And then she turned, walked out. No more words. The sound of the door clicking shut felt like a punch to the chest, like finality itself had just slammed into my life and knocked the wind out of it. I sank into the couch, surrounded by this crushing silence. The walls felt closer, tighter, like even the air didn't want to be there anymore. The next few days, a blur. I canceled everything. The venue, the caterers, the florist. Each call felt like carving out another chunk of the life we were supposed to have, like taking a sledgehammer to my own damn heart. People reacted differently. My friends tried to be there, but some clearly didn't get it. They looked at me like I'd overreacted, like I'd let a family spat nuke a wedding. Mel's family, though, they didn't even pretend. Her mom flat out called me a heartless bastard. Said I'd thrown away a perfect relationship over some petty sibling drama. They didn't get it. None of them did. This wasn't about a fight. It was about trust. And once that's gone, there's nothing left to stand on. Her brother, the one I used to be tight with, sent me this long, bitter text. Called me out, said I was making the biggest mistake of my life. I just sat there, staring at my phone, numb. Like, what was I even supposed to say? They didn't know. Not really. They didn't understand the depth of it. The scar tissue I was still carrying around because of Jolene. They saw drama. I lived through trauma. And then, my own family jumped in. Calls, voicemails, texts, over and over. My parents were relentless. My mom's messages swung between desperate pleas and guilt-drenched lectures. One voicemail still echoes in my head, her voice trembling. "Curtis, please, maybe this is your chance to fix things. Don't let this destroy the family." But I didn't destroy the family. Jolene did. And now Mel, too.
The two people who were supposed to have my back, who should have protected me instead of reopening old wounds. They crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Then one night, after another soul-crushing day at work, I came home to an email. From her, Jolene. I hovered over the delete button for a good minute. But curiosity, it won. The subject line? I'm sorry. I opened it. It was long, full of wordy apologies, reflective monologues, therapy jargon, like she'd spent the last few years piecing together her villain origin story. She said she'd been in therapy, trying to untangle the envy, the resentment, the anger. She admitted what she did to me was unforgivable. She didn't even try to sugarcoat it. But then, she pivoted. She claimed she was different now, that she wanted to make things right, to reconnect, to be a sister again. I just sat there, reading it all, and feeling nothing. No rage, no hope, just exhaustion. Was I really supposed to believe that a few sessions on a therapist's couch could rewrite the past? That it could undo the years I spent picking up the pieces after she burned my life down? Losing that job, my reputation, the embarrassment, the sheer grind of rebuilding everything from the ground up. Was that supposed to disappear with a well-worded email? I didn't know what was worse, her actually believing that or the fact that some part of me almost wanted to. The scars were still there, too deep, too raw. I closed the email without replying. That weekend, I kept to myself. No texts, no calls. Just me, trying to make sense of the wreckage. My thoughts kept boomeranging back to Mel. I missed her. God, I missed her. The way she laughed at my dumb jokes, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about things she loved.
But no matter how much I replayed the good, the ache in my chest wouldn't go away. Because underneath it all, the trust was gone. Not just cracked, shattered. This wasn't about Jolene anymore. It was about Mel making a choice. I told her, begged her not to bring my sister into our lives. I made that boundary crystal clear from the jump. And she went behind my back anyway, like proving a point was more important than protecting what we had. I tried to outrun the pain, hit the basketball court hard, pushing my body until my legs were screaming, lifted until my arms went numb. I needed the burn. I needed anything but the storm in my head. Afterward, I just sat in my car, drenched in sweat, staring blankly out the windshield. My mind was spiraling. Was I being too stubborn? Was this really worth losing Mel? But then I'd remember that moment, when she looked me in the eye and told me what she'd done. That punch of betrayal, that cold realization that the woman I loved had heard my pain and still stepped right over it. No matter how much I cared about her, that wound was still bleeding. My Tuesday, I walked into the office feeling like a ghost, just going through the motions. My boss, Ashley, a sharp-edged, no-nonsense type who'd always had my back, pulled me aside. "You holding up?" she asked, her tone way softer than usual. I gave her a half smile, one of those I'm fine lies that everyone can see through. "I'm trying." She studied me for a beat, then nodded. "Sometimes standing your ground is the hardest damn thing you'll ever do, but it matters." Those words stuck. I buried myself in work that day, got lost in the rhythm of code, letting the clack of the keyboard drown out the noise in my head. And when I finally got home, the silence in the apartment felt sharper than ever. But for the first time in a while, I felt still. Not healed, not happy. Just at peace.
Saturday evening hit different. I pulled into my parents' driveway with a stomach full of knots and zero expectations. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. It felt like walking into a museum of my old life. Everything familiar, but distant, off. I stepped inside, and there they were, Mom and Dad, sitting at the dining table like they were waiting for some kind of intervention scene. "Curtis," my mom said, her voice soft, like she already knew she was about to piss me off. We sat. The food was untouched. The tension? Palpable. Then came the lecture. It started slow, about how family's forever, how everyone makes mistakes, how maybe Jolene deserves another chance. I didn't say a word, just listened. Let them run the script. And then Mom dropped the real bomb. "She's been trying, Curtis. Therapy, apologizing, reaching out. Maybe it's time you let go too." That's when something in me cracked. "I did let go," I said, my voice low. "I let go the day she ruined my life. What I didn't let go of was my self-respect." They looked stunned, like it hadn't occurred to them that this wasn't about grudge holding. It was about boundaries. "And Mel," Dad asked carefully, "have you talked to her?" I shook my head. "She made her choice when she invited Jolene behind my back." Silence again. I didn't stay long after that. I couldn't. They didn't get it. Or maybe they just didn't want to. As I drove home, headlights blurring past me on the freeway, it finally hit me. Sometimes family isn't about blood. It's about trust. And when that's gone, when the people closest to you choose the one who hurt you, you don't owe them closure. You owe yourself peace. And for the first time in a long time, I was finally chasing that.
I couldn't shake the weight pressing on my chest as I climbed the steps to my parents' front door. I took a deep breath, already bracing for some kind of emotional ambush. The door opened, and there was my mom, giving me a hug that felt more like a guilt trap than affection. "I'm so glad you came," she whispered. But the look in her eyes told me this wasn't just dinner. I stepped inside, and immediately something felt off. The air was thick, like the whole house was holding its breath. And then I saw her, Jolene, sitting at the dining table like she belonged there. Our eyes locked, and for a split second, I thought I saw regret in hers. But I didn't care, didn't want to care. "What is she doing here?" I snapped, my voice sharp, shaking with fury. "Curtis, please," my dad said, his expression full of that rehearsed heartbreak he pulled out during every conflict. "We just wanted to help you make peace." "You did this behind my back," I growled, the betrayal hitting like a gut punch. "You set me up." Mom's eyes welled up. "We thought if you two just talked, maybe you could finally heal." I clenched my fists. "You still don't get it. You never have." Then Jolene spoke, her voice all shaky and fragile. "Curtis, I just want to apologize." But her words bounced off me like static, empty, meaningless noise. I turned to my parents, throat burning with bitterness. "You're still trying to fix something that's been broken for years. And guess what? You can't. Not like this." Dad's voice cracked. "We just want our family back." "This?" I said, my voice like ice. "This is the version of family where trust doesn't matter, where betrayal gets swept under the rug if someone says sorry loud enough." I turned toward the door, heart pounding, lungs tight. "I told you where I stood. If you can't respect that, then I don't know what else to say." And then I left. I heard my mom crying behind me, sob after sob, trailing down the front steps. But I didn't stop. I didn't look back. The cold night air hit my face, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like I could finally breathe. The line had been drawn, and I wasn't crossing theirs. I sure as hell wasn't letting them cross mine. That night, I sat in my car for a long time before driving home. My phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from my parents, from Jolene, even from Mel. Yeah, they probably told her everything. I didn't open a single one. I wasn't explaining myself again. I wasn't justifying my pain to people who refused to hear it. When I finally walked into my apartment, something had shifted. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was space. My space. And for once, it felt like I could actually live in it. I was done clinging to people who hurt me. Done forcing broken pieces to fit where they just didn't belong anymore. The next few days were quiet, intentionally so. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. Just sitting with the aftermath, letting it all settle. I knew I'd torched some bridges, and there was no rebuilding those. But weirdly, that realization came with a sense of freedom. I wasn't dragging around other people's expectations anymore. I wasn't pretending I owed forgiveness to someone who never truly earned it. One night, I hit up a few friends who'd been checking in on me for weeks. Figured it was time to stop isolating. We met at this low-key bar downtown, the kind of spot where the music isn't screaming over your thoughts and the drinks come without judgment.
As I sat there, sipping a whiskey and listening to everyone laugh, it hit me how much I'd pulled away from the world. How long I'd been sitting in my own silence, convinced it meant strength. But life hadn't stopped just because my engagement had blown up. And neither did I. Later that night, as we were walking out to our cars, my buddy Sam clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing, man," he said. "Takes guts to stand your ground." I nodded, and this time, I actually believed it. Yeah, it cost me. But losing myself? That would have cost more. The next morning, I went for a walk along the beach. The tide was low, waves gently brushing against the sand like they had nowhere else to be. The sun broke over the water in gold and fire, and I just stood there, breathing in the salty air like it was medicine. There was still pain, still loss, but under it all, there was hope. I was finally free to build something new, something where my boundaries were respected, where I didn't have to bend or shrink just to keep other people comfortable, where family meant support, not sabotage. I didn't know what came next, but for once, that didn't scare me. One step at a time, I'd figure it out. The days blurred into weeks, and slowly, life took on a new rhythm. I wasn't the same guy I was before the breakup, but I was starting to feel real again. Solid. Grounded.
There was peace in the quiet, in the simplicity of just focusing on me. I started spending more time with the people who never made me feel small. We hiked secret coastal trails, traded stories around bonfires under chill night skies, laughed until our ribs ached. And in all of it, I remembered what real connection looked like. Not forced, not conditional, just honest, just human. Those friendships, the ones I'd leaned into lately, felt real, in a way I hadn't experienced in a long time. No judgment, no hidden agendas, no you should forgive guilt trips. Just people who saw me, stood by me, and let me breathe. And that gave me the strength to keep moving forward.
Work stayed steady. I threw myself into it, hard, diving into complex projects, stretching myself, grinding past my limits. It wasn't about distraction anymore. It was about growth. One afternoon, after a meeting, Denise, my boss, pulled me aside. She's sharp, tough, doesn't hand out compliments unless she means it. "You've been killing it lately, Curtis," she said, a rare smile tugging at her face. "I can see the focus. Keep it up." I nodded, something warm sparking in my chest. Pride. Not the loud, flashy kind, just the quiet truth that I was still capable, still climbing. That everything I'd been through hadn't wrecked me. It had refined me. That weekend, I finally decided to clear out the apartment. For real this time. I dug through drawers, closets, boxes, and yeah, Mel was everywhere. A lone earring tucked in the nightstand, a crumpled movie ticket from some cheesy rom-com we swore we hated but secretly loved, a half-finished grocery list in her handwriting. "Don't forget garlic," underlined twice. Each item was a little ghost, a flicker of who we were. But instead of drowning in those memories, I honored them and let them go. I placed everything in a box, taped it shut, and set it aside. Letting go didn't mean pretending it never happened. It just meant choosing not to carry the weight of what could have been anymore. After that, the apartment felt lighter, like the air itself shifted. I moved the couch, got a new rug, hung up some local art I'd been eyeing for months, added a few stubborn little plants that probably had a 50-50 chance of surviving me, and suddenly the place didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like mine. That night, I stood at the stove, trying to master the simplest pasta dish known to man. Burned the garlic, of course. But I didn't care. Because it wasn't about impressing anyone. It wasn't about filling silence with noise. It was about building a life that finally felt like it was mine. One dinner, one box, one step at a time. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my mom. "We miss you. Please talk to us when you're ready."
I just stared at it. The words were simple, but they hit like a brick. The sting from that ambushed dinner still hadn't faded. But I also knew they weren't bad people. Just people who never fully got it. Who couldn't understand the depth of my hurt. Or why I needed to draw that line in the sand. I didn't reply. Not yet. I needed time. And for once, I was okay with that. Healing didn't come with a deadline. A few weeks later, I ended up at this chill rooftop party downtown. Nothing fancy, just music, city lights, drinks, and a bunch of people I mostly didn't know. And that's where I met Emily. She had this laid-back smile, the kind that didn't feel forced. Talking to her was easy, like we'd been doing it for years. We chatted about everything. Favorite books, random road trip stories, best barbecue joints in Texas. Not once did she ask about my past, or press for answers I wasn't ready to give. She was just present. And damn, that was refreshing. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to justify myself. I didn't have to explain my pain or guard my boundaries like a fortress. I could just be. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples, she looked at me and grinned. "Feel like grabbing a milkshake?" I laughed. "Sure, as long as there's no karaoke involved." She cracked up,
And in that small, honest moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in what felt like forever. Warmth. Not sparks, not butterflies, just comfort. It wasn't love. It wasn't a movie scene.
It was the quiet realization that maybe, just maybe, new beginnings were still out there. Later that night, back in my apartment, I dropped my keys on the counter and just stood by the window, looking out at the Austin skyline, glowing under the stars. I wasn't over it, not by a long shot. Jolene's betrayal, Mel's broken trust, those scars were still mine, but they didn't own me. They were just part of the story now, not the whole book. I was stronger, wiser, clearer on what I needed and what I'd never settle for again. The future? Still messy, still uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. I had boundaries. I had self-respect. And I knew who the hell I was. Sometimes standing your ground means losing people you once loved. But sometimes it means finally finding yourself.